Hi there, welcome back to Daily Sales Tips with Chin. The big benefit to having a ball hit is that you don't have to spend time styling it before you actually record a Zoom video. Anyways, let's get back to today's topic. We're discussing the guide framework, which you can use to move a prospect all the way from an interested lead to a close. Quick refresher, guide stands for greet, understand, inform, discuss, and enrich. And in today's portion, we're focusing on the discuss element. And this is actually part 2 of the discuss element where we're focusing on trial closing. So let's jump right to it. So in the discuss phase, as we mentioned yesterday, there are 4 main signs. There's buying signs, and then you trial close, and then you go in for the close, and then you have to deal with overcoming objections. So what exactly is a trial close? Before I jump to that, I want to share 2 quick tips, and then we'll dive into it. First off, we have to understand the decision threshold. People will make a change when they realize that the cost of staying the same outweighs the cost of changing. Does that make sense? So if it costs them, if they're losing out more by not changing, by staying the same, and it costs them more than what they have to spend to change, then they're more likely to change. So the cost of staying the same includes things like, lost opportunity costs, risks that they incur, any penalties that they might incur if they don't become compliant, challenges with the current method of solving the problem, time that they're wasting, that kind of stuff. Cost of changing not only includes your price, but it also includes things like the approval process, the learning curve for learning this new solution, adoption, getting and convincing the rest of the organization to come on board and also use it as well. And then also integration with existing workflows, processes, and tools, right? So to get someone to change, to get someone to be willing to close, you need them to really realize that the cost of staying the same outweighs the cost of changing. So there are 2 ways of doing that. Either you can highlight and expand on the cost of staying the same. So really dig into their pain points, really highlight to them like what they could be missing out on. Or you could make it as easy as possible for them to change by reducing the cost of changing. So that's where you see a lot of companies do things like pilot programs, trials, because that's making it less risky, cheaper, more affordable for people to test out the product and see value before they're more willing to change. Make sense? So I contemplate this as you think about closing, because sometimes you might actually need to adjust not only your techniques, but also adjust your offerings as well, so that it's more easy to close a customer. Because once you sell a customer, it's much easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to sell to a brand new customer. So some quick examples of using the decision threshold well. There's this company here in Vancouver called RunGo. They are a turn-by-turn based running app, and they give you directions based on your routes. And they actually pivoted to offer the app to hotels so that they can use it as an app for guests that are interested in exploring the city. And they found that the ideal price point was $5,000, because anything higher than $5,000 would require approval from head office, and that slowed down the sales process. So they explored how they could repackage their offering to be less than $5,000. And when that was the case, any local branch could implement without having to escalate to higher management. So that's one example of not just sales techniques, but actually adjusting your product itself. Another thing to be very mindful about is the no ladder. So in the example over here, you see, do you have a few minutes to talk versus is now a bad time to talk? Which do you think people are more likely to respond to or agree with? People actually feel that when they're saying no, they are protecting themselves. And when they say yes, they're committing to something. So by default, people are actually more comfortable saying no rather than a yes. So when you're trying to close someone, you're trying to get them to say yes, but think about how you can rephrase your sentence so that you can get them to say a no instead. So sometimes no can be used very strategically, right? So would it be a bad idea if, right? Then they don't feel locked in, right? Then they would more likely say no rather than yes. Make sense? And they're willing to say that no. So getting back to the trial close is actually where you're trying to get them to say yes. So the advice on the no before is mostly about how you frame other statements around understanding if they're ready to move forward, understanding if they feel happy with the solution, if they're willing to spend the time with you, that kind of stuff. In the trial close, what you're trying to do over here is, number one, you want to test the waters. You want to see if they're actually ready to take out their wallets and pay. It also serves as a primer, because when they're saying yes to things, they're more likely to say yes to the next statement that follows. And it really just shows you if you need to go back and re-explain anything, right? At the end of the day, if you've done a good job, if you've already explored, really understand your customers' needs, and then if you've done the time to showcase them the solutions that are right for them, they are expecting you to close the deal. And if you don't ask for the sale here, really it just shows them how clueless you are. So if they've, as a salesperson, if a customer has already taken up so much of your time, the least they can do is really entertain your closing question. So what is the trial close? The trial close is when you ask a question that gets them to say yes, and it really helps you assess if they're ready. And this is the only part in the entire sales process where you ask a close-ended question. So remember, we talked about open-ended and close-ended questions. Close-ended questions don't give you a lot of information, so it's not really good as probing questions, but this is the only time where it's okay to use a close-ended question. So you might see something like, do you understand everything I just said? Do you like this product? Do you believe that this will solve your problem? If they're saying yes, yes, yes to all of that, there's no reason why they wouldn't say yes to buying a product or service, right? So number one, it tells you that they're ready to buy and it primes them. Make sense? So yeah, if they're agreeing to everything, there's no reason why they shouldn't say no. But if they do say no, it's not a big deal. Then it just means that you have to overcome objections. You go back through the cycle, and we'll talk about overcoming objections in the next week when we get to the topic. But I hope this tip helps. So if you're not sure if someone is ready to buy, try out trial closing. Instead of just saying like, hey, let's get you set up, jump to a trial close first, just make sure that they're ready, and then you can go in for the close. So I hope you enjoyed the session. If you like these kind of videos, check out my YouTube channel. Just search my name, Chin Chang, and definitely subscribe if you enjoy the videos. If you have any questions, just feel free to email me or comment down below. Until then, I will see you tomorrow for the next session on closing.